who are financially secure tend to lean on a couple of core habits. In today's video, we're talking about 7 of these habits and how you can implement them today if your goal is to build financial security. The first habit of financially secure people is that they educate themselves about money. And this is a lifelong commitment to education and to continuing to level up their financial skills. They never say, oh, I'll figure it out as I go. They always have a plan and they're always really committed to educating themselves and being really well informed. And this is across a broad variety of areas. So this might be in aspects like budgeting, it might be investments, it might be taxes, it might be retirement planning, insurance products. So this doesn't mean that you need to become an expert overnight, but what it does mean is that you want to stay curious, continue to learn, continue to expand your knowledge base, because financial security really and truly does start with financial education. They've done a number of studies on these over the years, and they've found that the number one thing that is the biggest, accounts the most for the disparity in retirement savings and how prepared people are for retirement. The absolute number one factor that goes into that is financial education, which is why I'm so passionate about teaching that and why it's such an important thing to continue to learn and to educate yourself about money as well as you go through life. The second habit of financially secure people is that they know where their money is going at all times. So they're not leaving their money to run itself. They are absolutely on top of things. They've got a budget. They've got a plan for their money. They have their retirement funds set up with maybe automatic transfers going to those. They're keeping on top of bills, which honestly, the absolute best way to keep on top of your bills and make sure they get paid on time is just automate your bill pay. You can have your bank cut a check to these different companies and the bank sends the money out, and then you just have to make sure that you always keep enough in that account that's for bills specifically so it doesn't bounce a check. But it's a really good way to just kind of make sure you're not losing money on late fees and all of this. So just keeping track of where your money's going is incredibly kind of like a keystone habit, and budgeting is such a core component of what I teach because it's the way we keep track of our money. It's the way we see how much are we bringing in, how much is going out, is the things that our money's going out to things we want it to go to, or are we just struggling in certain areas and we need to be able to kind of reassess from time to time about the way we're prioritizing our spending, or has cost of living gone up like it has lately and we're struggling with kind of keeping on balance just because cost of the essentials have gone up. So having a budget is an absolutely important habit to really work on, and I have a whole playlist on that I will link to as well so that you can access that anytime you'd like. The third habit of financially secure people is that they save consistently over time. They don't do it occasionally or when they feel like it. They make it a core habit that they never waver from unless something really crazy has come up and there's just something interfered with their normal ability to save. And so they'll often do things to make it easier and take the decision making out of saving, like automatic paycheck deductions, which is very helpful because then that just comes right off the top of your paycheck, goes straight to your 401k, your IRA, your emergency savings, if you have like automatic transfers set up to go to emergency savings and whatnot. But really helpful to just have things automated so you don't have to think about it. Also helpful to put your savings in another place that's out of sight, out of mind. So it's helpful to even consider having high yield savings accounts that are just for your emergency funds that you just perhaps even have at a different bank. So they're not right there in your main bank where you're doing the majority of your transactions and paying bills and so forth. And so just whatever you can do to almost just like hide your money from yourself and forget you have it. It's kind of very helpful because that way you're not thinking about your emergency savings fund as something you could, spend if you run the credit card bill over. It's just money that you are just completely forgetting you have unless there's an actual emergency, at which point you can tap into that money. So that's a really core habit of financially secure people, is just contributing to those different savings accounts, contributing to their retirements consistently, because that consistency is key. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as you can be consistent as possible with saving, that's the main thing. The fourth habit of financially secure people is that they resist lifestyle inflation. It can be so easy to fall into this trap of, as you're making more money, to upgrade your home, upgrade your cars, upgrade your lifestyle. But they're really good at being able to pause when they get a raise or a bonus, and then be able to think strategically about what to do with that money. And maybe they use some of it, sure, but then also really making sure that they're being cognizant about how much of that money needs to go to their future selves. There's a really interesting concept that I'm learning about right now as I'm going through my training to become a chartered financial consultant. And the concept is this: the whole point of saving for retirement is that we're taking the money that we're making today. We know we're going to spend it, but we're choosing not to spend it right now. So we're putting that money aside so our future self can spend it instead of our present self. Now, this is a very difficult thing for most people to do because our present needs can feel so overwhelming and so in our face, and our wants can even feel really urgent and really demanding. But being able to kind of transfer that when we're going to use the money from now until that point in the future, whether it's for an emergency or whether it's for our retirement, of saying, I know I'm going to need to eat and have somewhere to live and pay for medical care and all of this during my retirement. I know I'll probably have some kind of emergencies come up at some point, financial emergencies or otherwise, that I'll need money for. So really making it a habit out of, when you have more money coming in, rather than go with lifestyle inflation, choose to defer and delay your use of that money to that point in the future when you'll need it as well. And then also find ways to invest it strategically so that you're keeping up with inflation. That's very important. Work with a good investment advisor on how to do that within perhaps your IRA, your Roth IRA, your 401k, and all of these different vehicles that you can use to be able to save and invest for retirement. But just that whole practice of not using everything that's coming in today is a core habit for financially secure people. The fifth habit of financially secure people is that they maintain a well-stocked emergency fund. So this is something that is really, really important, to make that habit of savings, make that habit of deferring the money that you're making right now, at least some of it, for emergencies and things down the road. Because we know things happen in life that can cause really big financial stressors. And this could be something like a job loss or a furlough. There's just so many different things. It could be medical expenses, so many different things. It's just been more and more challenging to save money because it means we have to really kind of dial back our current needs and wants to be able to save it all. And then when your needs are starting to cost a lot more and your income is perhaps not keeping pace with that as well as it used to, that's when we start to see people's saving rates really decline. And so it's just a fact of the times in which we live as well, that it is a slightly difficult time to save. So again, this is not about perfection. This is just about developing a habit that will turn what could be a huge financial disaster if you had an emergency come up into a perhaps minor inconvenience if you have money saved up for a rainy day. And so again, it's just that mindset of being able to say, I know I'm going to have things happen at some point that I will need some extra money to cover. I'm going to take some of the money today and put it off until that time in an investment account or in savings or what have you, and be able to really keep that for another time and look after my future self that way. So that's really the discipline. I would really recommend as well for your emergency savings specifically that you would consider keeping it relatively liquid and not put it in something where you're going to be charged a lot of fees to be able to pull the money out. So for example, I'm not a big fan of CDs or certificates of deposit for your emergency savings, because you often will get penalties for pulling the money out earlier than the expiration date of the CD. So there's many other places you can put your money and still make fairly good rate of return. You've got money market accounts that often don't charge any kind of penalty to pull your money out. There's high yield savings accounts which don't charge you any penalty either. So really investigate your options and explore your options as well. And just a way to be able to keep your money somewhere where you're making interest, You're keeping ahead of inflation, obviously, but that money is specifically for those moments when life happens, and that way you've got that peace of mind. The sixth habit of financially secure people is that they invest for the long term. So they are focused on things like their retirement investments. They're focused on making consistent contributions each and every month as much as they're able to. And these are the things that will really help build your security as well. Now, of course, investing, you can make money with investing, but you can also lose money. So it's really important to work with a qualified investment advisor with your investments, and also with a qualified retirement planner, because retirement planning is something that you do not want to try to DIY it, because there's just so many variables that go into figuring out that question of how much do I need to retire? And so it's very, very important to work with someone who can really help you kind of come up with your goals and then reverse engineer what your monthly targets are, your yearly, monthly, and yearly targets are going forward, so that then by the time you get into your retirement years, you've been doing all the things that will then help you be able to be in a secure place for your retirement. And then the seventh habit of financially secure people is that they don't compare their finances to others. So these people really avoid the comparison trap, and they really steer clear of comparing their lifestyle to other people's, whether it's their peers or people they see on social media, and are able to really just kind of stay in their own lane, focus on their own goals, which they've ideally worked with a financial advisor, worked with a retirement planner on, to come up with a customized plan for their situation at their particular time in life and what's the appropriate goals for them, because it's highly individualized, kind of like a health plan. You cannot do one size fits all health. It's very individualized. And so very much similar with finances. There's no way to create a one size fits all financial plan. And so that's where working with an individual financial planner, working with a retirement planner, can be very, very helpful to come up with something specifically for you. But these people really steer clear of the comparison trap, because that way they're not falling into that trap of spending all their money and trying to keep up with other people and all of this, and then just get to retirement and maybe not have a very nice retirement because they maybe were making high income during their earning years, but because the people around them were just spending it all, then they were perhaps doing it too, just kind of mindlessly. And so financially secure people really steer clear of comparison. They stay in their own lane, they do their own thing, and they just work on consistently hitting their goals month after month, year after year, and that's what lands you in that place of financial security long term. So thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I have another one I think you'll also enjoy that I'll link to on screen, and I will see you very soon over there.